guess it's on. It's live. It's on. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm on. Hello, everyone. We'll get back to our story here. Somehow we got off. Sorry about that. Are you all there yet? I hope you're all still there. I'm back. Ah, I see somebody coming up. Good. Anybody else? Ah, hi. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. I'll wait a minute for all of you to come back on. We just started what Lucy found there. So I'll start reading again. Good to see you all. Keep trying. Something happened with our connection, but it's back on. Thanks. I just saw a post. Good evening, said Lucy, but the fawn was so... Oh, sorry. The chapter 2 is what Lucy found there. Now she's gone through the wardrobe and she's out by the lamppost. Good evening, said Lucy, but the fawn was so busy picking up its parcels at first it did not reply. When it had finished, it made her a little bow. Good evening, said the fawn. Excuse me. I don't want to be inquisitive, but should I be right in thinking that you are a daughter of Eve? My name's Lucy, said she, not quite understanding him. But you are, forgive me, you are what they call a girl, asked the fawn. Of course I'm a girl, said Lucy. You are in fact human. Of course I'm human, said Lucy, still a little puzzled. To be sure, said the fawn. How stupid of me. But I've never seen a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve before. And then it stopped. The fawn stopped as if it had been going to say something it had not intended, but had remembered in time. Delighted. The fawn went on. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tumnus. I am very pleased to meet you, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy. And may I ask you, O Lucy, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus, how you have come into Narnia? Narnia? What's that? Said Lucy. This is the land of Narnia, said the fawn, where we are now, all that lies between the lamppost and the great castle of Cair Paravel on the eastern sea. And you have come from the wild woods of the west? I got in through a wardrobe in the spare room, said Lucy. Ah, said Mr. Tumnus, in a rather melancholy voice, if only I had worked harder at geography when I was a little fawn, I should no doubt know all about those strange countries. But it's too late now. I'm too old. But they aren't countries at all, said Lucy, almost laughing. It's only just back there, at least. I'm not sure. It's summer there. Meanwhile, Mr. Tumnus said, it is winter in Narnia and has been so for ever so long, and we shall both catch cold if we stand here talking in the snow. Daughter of Eve from the far land of Spare where the eternal summer reigns around the bright city of War, Drobe, how would it be if you come and had tea with me? Thank you very much, Mr. Tumnus, said Lucy, but I was wondering whether I ought to be getting back. It's only just round the corner, said the fawn, and there'll be a roaring fire and toast and sardines and cake. Now, how many of you adults and children like sardines? I'm not too partial to them, but I do like cake, and I love honey on toast, and I love tea. So maybe you can ask your dad or mom or whoever's there, your sister or brother, to make you some tea and get some cookies for the next reading tomorrow night. I have a very special surprise at the end of this broadcast, and a couple of surprises. I will show them to you, so hang on. It's only just around the corner, said the fawn, and there'll be a roaring fire and toast and sardines and cake. Well, it's very kind of you, said Lucy, but I shan't be able to stay long. If you will take my arm, daughter of Eve, said Mr. Tumnus, I shall be able to hold the umbrella over both of us. That's the way. Now off we go. So Lucy found herself walking through the wood, arm in arm with this strange creature, as if they had known one another all their lives. They had not gone far before they came to a place where the ground became rough and there were rocks all about, and little hills up and little hills down. At the bottom of one small valley, Mr. Tumnus turned suddenly aside as if he were going to walk straight into an unusually large rock. But at the last moment, Lucy found he was leading her into the entrance of a cave. Have you boys and girls or adults ever done any caving and going into caves, spelunking? It's really wonderful, and you can find all kinds of things like bats and everything else. As soon as they were inside, she found herself blinking in the light of the wood fire. Then Mr. Tumnus stood and took a flaming piece of wood out of the fire with neat little pair of tongs and little lamp. Now we shan't be long, he said, and immediately put a kettle on. Lucy thought she had never been in a nicer place. It was a little dry. It was a little dry, clean cave of reddish stone with a carpet on the floor and two little chairs. When we get done reading, I'm going to show you something made out of red stone, like what she's talking about. The two little chairs, one for me and for a friend, said Mr. Tumnus. And there was a table and dresser and a mantelpiece over the fire, and above that a picture of an old faun with a gray beard. In one corner there was a door which Lucy thought must lead to Mr. Tumnus' bedroom, and on one wall a shelf full of books. Lucy looked at the books while he was setting out the tea things. They had titles like The Life and Letters of Silenus, or Nymphs and Their Ways, or Men, Monks, and Gamekeepers, or A Study in Popular Legend, or Is Man a Myth? Now, daughter of Eve, said the faun, it really is a wonderful tea. There was a nice brown egg, lightly boiled for each of them. Do you like boiled eggs? I do. I like to eat them out of the shell. Maybe your mom and dad or your sister or brother can make one for you tomorrow morning. And then sardines on toast. If you like them, they're great. And I do like them sometimes. And buttered toast, and then toast with honey, and then a sugar-topped cake. Now that's what everybody ought to make for us right now while we're in the house. And when Lucy was tired of eating, the faun began to talk. He had wonderful tales to tell of life in the forest. He told about the midnight dances and how the nymphs who lived in the wells and the dryads who lived in the trees came out to dance with the fauns, about long hunting parties after hunting the milk-white stag who would give you wishes if you ever caught him, and about feasting and treasure-seeking with the wild red dwarfs in deep mines and caverns far beneath the forest floor. And then about summer when the woods were green, and old Silenus on his fat donkey when he would come to visit them, and sometimes Bacchus himself. And when he would visit, the streams would run with wine instead of water, and the whole forest would give itself up to jollification for weeks on end. That sounds like fun. That's what we need right now, I think. Going on. Now that it isn't always winter, he added gloomily. Then to cheer himself up, he took out from its case on the dresser a strange little flute that looked as if it were made of straw, and he began to play. And the tune he played made Lucy want to cry, laugh, dance, and go to sleep all at the same time. It must have been hours later when she shook herself off and said, "Oh, Mr. Tumnus, I'm so sorry to stop you. And I do love that tune, but really I must go home. I only meant to stay for a few minutes." "It's no good now, you know," said the faun, laying down its flute and shaking its head at her very sorrowfully. "No good?" said Lucy, jumping up and feeling rather frightened. "What do you mean? I've got to go home at once. The others will be wondering what has happened to me." But a moment later she asked, "Mr. Tumnus, What is the matter?" For the fawn's brown eyes had filled with tears, and the tears began trickling down its cheeks. And soon those tears were running off the end of its nose, and last it covered its face with its hands and began to howl. "Mr. Tumnus, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy in great distress. Don't! What is the matter? Aren't you well? Dear Mr. Tumnus, tell me what is wrong." But the fawn continued sobbing of it as if its heart would break. And even when Lucy went over and put her arms round him and lent him her handkerchief, he did not stop. He merely took the handkerchief and kept on using it, wringing it out with both hands whenever it got too wet to be any more use, so that presently Lucy was standing in a damp patch. "Mr. Tumnus," bawled Lucy in his ear, shaking him, "do stop. Stop it at once. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. A great big fawn like you. What on earth are you crying about?" Oh, sobbed Mr. Tumnus. "I'm crying because I'm such a bad fawn." "I don't think that you're a bad fawn at all," said Lucy. "I think you're a very good fawn, actually. You're the nicest fawn I ever met." Oh, you wouldn't say that if you knew," replied Mr. Tumnus between his sobs. "No, I'm a very bad fawn. I don't suppose there ever was a worse fawn since the beginning of the world." "But what have you done?" asked Lucy. "My old father now," said Mr. Tumnus. "That's his picture over on the mantelpiece," he pointed to it. He would never have done a thing like this." "A thing like what?" said Lucy. "Like what I've done," said the fawn. "Taken service under the White Witch. That's what I am. I am under the pay of the White Witch." "The White Witch? Who's she?" "Why, it is she that has got all Narnia under her thumb. It's she that makes it always winter and never Christmas. Just think of that." "How awful," said Lucy. "But what does she pay you for?" "That's the worst of it," said Mr. Tumnus with a great groan. "I'm a kidnapper for her. That's what I am. Look at me, daughter of Eve. Would you believe that I'm the sort of fawn that would meet a poor innocent child in the wood, one that had never done me any harm, and pretend to be friendly with it, and invite it home to my cave, all for the sake of lulling it asleep and then handing it over to the White Witch?" "No," said Lucy, "I'm sure you wouldn't do anything of the sort." "But I have," said the fawn. "Well," said Lucy rather slowly, for she wanted to be truthful and yet not be too hard on him. "Well, that was pretty bad. But you're so sorry for it, I'm sure you will never do it again." "Daughter of Eve, don't you understand?" said the fawn. "It isn't something I've done. I'm doing it now, this very moment." "What do you mean?" cried Lucy, turning very white. "You are the child," said Tumnus. "I had orders from the White Witch that if ever I saw a son of Adam or a daughter of Eve in the wood, I was to catch them and hand them over to her. And you were the first I ever met. And I pretended to be your friend and asked you to tea, and all the time I've been meaning to wait until you were asleep and then go and tell her." "Oh, but you won't, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy. "You won't, will you?" Indeed, you really mustn't." "And if I don't," said he, beginning to cry again, "she's sure to find out, and she'll have my tail cut off, my horns sewn off, my beard plucked out, and then she'll wave her wand over my beautiful cloven hooves and turn them into horrid solid hoofs, like a wretched horse's. And if she's extra and specially angry, she'll turn me into a stone. And I shall be the only statue of a fawn in her horrible house, until the 4 thrones at Cair Paravel are filled, and goodness knows what will happen or whether it will ever happen at all." "I'm very sorry, Mr. Tumnus," said Lucy, "but please let me go home." course I will, said the fawn. Of course, I've got to. I see that now. I hadn't known what humans were like before I met you. Of course I can't give you up to the witch, not now that I know you. But we must be off at once. I'll see you back to the lamppost. I suppose you can find your own way from there back to Spare and Wardrobe. I'm sure I can, said Lucy. We must go quietly as we can, said Mr. Tumnus. The whole wood is full of her spies. Even some of the trees are on her side. Oh dear. Pretty scary place, don't you think, children? They both got up and left the tea things on the table, and Mr. Tumnus once more put up his umbrella and gave Lucy his arm, and they went out into the snow. The journey back was not at all like the journey to the fawn's cave. They stole along as quickly as they could without speaking a word, in silence. And Mr. Tumnus kept to the darkest places so they would not be seen. Lucy was relieved when they reached the lamppost again. Do you know your way from here, daughter of Eve? Said Tumnus. Lucy looked very hard between the trees and could just see in the distance a patch of light that looked like daylight. Yes, she said, I can see the wardrobe door. Then be off home as quick as you can, said the fawn, and can you ever forgive me for what I've meant to do? Why, of course I can, said Lucy, shaking him heartily by the hand. I do hope you won't get into terrible trouble on my account. Farewell, daughter of Eve, said he. Perhaps I can keep the handkerchief? Rather, said Lucy, and then ran toward the far-off patch of daylight as quickly as her legs would carry her. And presently, instead of rough branches past her, she felt coats, and instead of crunching snow under her feet, she felt the wooden boards. And all at once she found herself jumping out of the wardrobe and into the same empty room from which the whole adventure had started. She shut the wardrobe door tightly behind her and looked around, panting for breath. It was still raining, and she could hear the voices of others in the passage. I'm here, she shouted. I'm here. I've come back. I'm all right. Thus endeth chapter 2. We will read more tomorrow night. But I said I have several surprises for you, all of you who are listening, and I would like to do that. Behind me is a wood carving from Poland, and it's a part of a work of a folk artist. Was one of the only folk artists allowed to carve wood in Poland during the communist regime. I will tell more about it later. We will start having like 5 to 10 minute curatorial talks about works of art. Anyway, this one's called, the title I'll give you tonight is Christ of the Oppressed. The wardrobe behind me is 19th century, and I've had it for a little while, and I want to show you, boys and girls, now what's inside my wardrobe. It'd be very hard for you to fit, but it's very cool. I would have to stack you on each of the shelves and myself, and I don't know if we'd fit, but I will show you. I'll open the door and push my chair aside. Can you all see in? Good. Right now I have sweaters and different things stacked and some souvenirs from France. However, this wardrobe is very special. It has 2 compartments, one that's secret, the other is locked. The first compartment, I'm going to move my chair. 1 second here. I'll be back with you in a moment. I'll tell you about this chair too in a minute. So here's the inside of the wardrobe. Down here is a drawer that locks. There's the drawer that locks. This was made in France. It's quite old. Or I said it was 19th century. But the really cool thing is this
There's a secret compartment here, if I can get it open. Here's a secret compartment where you can store treasures and nobody knows, because it looks like, let me adjust the camera so you can see it. See down there, there's a compartment underneath the white. The first one is the drawer with a lock, and the second one down is the secret compartment that looks just like the base, but not part of the inside. So that's my wardrobe, and we'll continue the story. I decided to talk with you upstairs here with the wardrobe, because this is my corner prayer room and place where I like to read. And I love being by the wardrobe. I keep imagining what might be going on in there, and I hope you do too. Now, it's too hot for a fire in the fireplace. That's why that log is sitting there, so I can keep the door open. But I also wanted to show you something from it was, the original was made in 1485, and it looks like something from the Red Dwarfs. This is a little dog, a gargoyle of a dog. It's hand-carved, and it's it's cast actually from a hand-carved stone that was done in 1485 in Strasbourg Cathedral. Strasbourg Cathedral is where they have the famous Christmas market. It's in France, and it's sometimes German and sometimes French. But I thought you'd like to see this little dog. I don't know its name, and I haven't translated the French description, which I will do for you at a later time and tell you all about it. But that's it for tonight on that. Then last night I showed you this little cross. And for those of you who weren't here last night, I want to show this to you. It's really a wonderful thing, and I got it right near the Strasbourg Cathedral. It was in an antique store that was started in 1837. This cross is made out of fragile wax. It's wax with a wood base. This cross seems to me really poignant about how fragile our life is right now, because this cross was given to a pilgrim who made a pilgrimage just before World War I and during the time of the flu epidemic in France. My uncles, my folks, my adoptive parents were 47 when they adopted me, and my three uncles on my mom's side fought in World War I, and they all came back. And I have a very special story I will tell you another time about experience of one of my uncles with the German prisoner camp at Christmas. Since we were talking about never Christmas and always winter, I'll tell you that story later. But anyway, again, as I said last night, please bless and hug all your children and your brothers and sisters, and enjoy each other while you can. Life is fragile. I'm going to end with one more thing, which I'll explain more later. This is a small brass, very old, probably 18th century triptych, icon of Mary, Mother of God with Jesus. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to do a close-up next time. But this was given to me by a friend, a wonderful friend, who escaped Germany during the Nazi regime with her family. They bought a bus and they performed and sang. They had an orchestra and performed and sang across Europe till they got to freedom. This was given to her. She told me the story and she said, when I die, I want you to have this. And so I inherited it. This triptych hung around a man's neck. There was a nurse that she was a friend with, and the nurse was about 90 years old when she went to visit her. And the nurse said, I want you to have this because I know this is special to you. And Mary Miller, my friend who gave it to me, said, I know it's special to you because of your work in Russia. This was hanging around a Russian soldier's neck. She was a nurse in World War I. And he was wearing this around his neck, and he died in her arms. But before he died, he said, I want you to have this. So it was handed to her. She handed it to Mary, who is a wonderful, faithful believer, and now to me. And it means so much to me because I've had such a special love for Russia and for the orphans in Russia, especially having been orphaned myself.
So that's for tonight, and I thank you all for coming, and I look forward to seeing you again. And I will let you know on the curatorial things. There'll be some things, there's some paintings, and we'll start in this room with a folding screen that was done by an artist, a contemporary artist named John Snogren. He's now an Orthodox monk and paints icons, but he graduated from Pratt and is a wonderful, wonderful painter, and is now a faithful icon painter. I'm wearing this hat because I'm trying to push spring. It's so hot here, but it's going to go back to winter. So tomorrow night we'll continue and find out what happens where it's never Christmas and always winter. Thank you all so much for joining me. Just to let you know, this will be posted on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. So either one, you can go back at any time and see both of these, both of them and the other ones that I've done before. Thank you and have a wonderful night. God bless you all. Good night. Good to see you all.